Welcome back. You're still watching Tonight, and it's time for Data Point for us to reflect on how well the government has done in terms of revenue collection. Remember that at the start of the financial year, this was the plan to collect tax revenue of 2.5 trillion shillings. This is the target that the Kenya Revenue Authority is working with. The non-tax revenue was supposed to be 80.9 billion shillings. The domestic borrowing, this is resources generated from locally, 852 billion shillings. The external loans and grants were to amount to 850 billion shillings, and other domestic resources were to be 3.19 billion shillings, and that was going to give a total of 4.28 trillion shillings in terms of financing the budget. But what has happened so far? Let's take a look at the targets that are reported to have been missed. This is according to the National Treasury. They are saying that the income tax, this is tax on salaries, tax on corporate tax, that is corporation tax, is the tax on the profits that companies make. 18% missed target, excise taxes 20%, value-added tax 8%, import duty 23% miss, and other revenues a miss of 13%. What does that mean? Looking at the various categories, the target for collection by the 7th month, this is between July 2023 and January 2024, the target was 1.7 trillion shillings, but the collections have been 1.49 trillion shillings, which is about 88% of attainment, but the shortfall is 195 billion shillings, that is about 12%. Now, looking at that, let's get to the categories. First, the ordinary revenue was supposed to be that 1.49 trillion shillings, but the actual collection has been 1.25 trillion, which is 84% attainment, meaning there's a gap of 232 billion shillings. For the appropriations in aid, these are collections by the government ministries and departments on the services they offer. 205 billion shillings was the target. They have been able to surpass the target by some 37 billion shillings, meaning 18% above target. And the total, eventually when you reconcile those two figures, you end up at a target of 1.69 trillion shillings as of by now, which is an estimate of 1.7 trillion shillings. But the actual collections are 1.49 trillion shillings, with that gap, which is a crucial figure of 195.4 billion shillings. Now, beyond that, you look at what else has happened. If you're talking about the ordinary revenue, the taxes themselves, the import duty, this is duty levied on goods that are, or services that are being imported. 104 billion shillings was the target, but the attainment is some 77% with a miss of 24 billion shillings. Excess taxes was supposed to be 204 billion shillings. The attainment is 80%, which is 163 billion shillings, with the miss being the difference of 41 billion shillings. The income tax, again, the taxes on salaries and incomes made by businesses, 684 billion shillings was the target. As of January this year, it was 559 billion shillings, which is 81% target attainment, and the gap is 124 billion shillings. For the value-added tax, of course, remember there are some changes, including the VAT on fuel from 8% to 16%, so the total target was supposed to be 406 billion shillings, but the attainment has been 92% performance. Now, if you look at all that gap, and of course adding up to 195 billion shillings, it has certain impacts that we'll be looking at. For instance, in the year 2022-2023, that is the financial year ended June 2023, the first 7 months, the actual collections were 1.3 trillion shillings. Now, for the year, for the period ending January this year, which is the first 7 months of the current financial year, the attainment is 1.49 trillion shillings. So, even though they're missing the target, there's some growth of 14.4%, but obviously not able to meet the target as per plan. Now, the Finance Act of 2023, the current tax law that was passed by Parliament last year, was hoping to increase revenues by 214 billion shillings by the end of the year. As of now, that is January 2024, the first 7 months of the year, then the actual collections have been 98.2 billion shillings. That is about 46%. Of course, that is below the target that should have been expected at that time. And the domestic borrowing is reported to have underperformed. That is according to the National Treasury, meaning that there is delayed exchequer releases of 294 billion shillings. So the delayed revenues, the underperforming borrowing means that the implementation of the budget is going to be affected, meaning they may require to come up with supplementary budgets. In fact, there's one in the works for supplementary budget budget to be in a position to reorganize the resources based on that reality. That is meaning that there has to be delayed releases of exchequer issues, especially to the counties and, of course, many other services in different government ministries and departments. And that is a data point this week.